we all know Hugging Face, right? They're kind of the center of the universe for the whole AI language model boom. But what happens when a company that's mastered digital words decides to, get physical? We're going to dive into their incredibly ambitious plan to build what's basically an app store for robots. And this isn't about changing our screens. It's about changing our actual physical world.
Okay, so let's get right into the big idea here. At the very heart of this whole thing is one single, really powerful metaphor that explains everything they're trying to do.
And there you have it. The goal isn't just to build a few cool robots, it's to build an entire ecosystem. Just think about it for a second. Being able to download a behavior for a robot to make it fold your laundry or play a game or help out in a lab as easily as you download an app. This is all about unlocking creativity for millions of people, not just a handful of experts in a lab.
So the big question is, why now? Why is a company that totally defined itself with digital models suddenly making a hard pivot into the messy, complicated, physical world of robotics? Well, it all comes down to a feeling, a prediction from someone with a pretty solid track record.
Yep, a spidey sense. That's from co-founder Thomas Wolfe. And you gotta remember, this is the same guy whose intuition led him to bet big on language models years before they completely took over the world. Well, that intuition was tingling again. He's convinced that robotics is at the exact same tipping point that AI was just a few years back.
And this is exactly what Wolfe was seeing. I mean, he was looking at academic labs where robots were already doing super complex stuff like tying knots and folding clothes. The hardware was clearly ready to go. So what was the big missing piece? Accessible, easy-to-use software that could turn all that amazing hardware into something actually useful for everybody.
So how exactly is Hugging Face going to provide that missing software piece? Well, they're not just building one thing, they're building an entire toolkit designed to kickstart this whole revolution.
And the centerpiece of this whole strategy is called Lay Robot. The best way to think about it is like this. It's basically the Transformers library, but for the physical world. It's a totally open source toolkit designed to bring the latest and greatest algorithms, datasets, and hardware connections to literally anyone who wants to start building.
Like a Robot basically pulls together three key things. First, you've got the AI brains, the models that actually make the decisions. Second, you need the datasets, all the real-world experiences those brains learn from. And finally, of course, you need the physical hardware that actually does the stuff. Like a Robot is the glue that connects all three of these pieces together.
And this really shows you how serious they are about accessibility. This isn't some gadget that costs thousands of dollars. We're talking $100. That's the price of their first robotic arm, the S100, and it was designed specifically to just tear down the barrier to entry for everyone.
And that's the whole point, right? By giving people these super low-cost, open-source tools, they're basically lighting a fire. They're handing developers the fundamental building blocks they need to go out and create totally new, kind of crazy applications right now, without needing a ton of venture capital funding. But look, this revolution isn't just about the tools. It's about the people who are using them. There's an entire community popping up around this idea, and they are all facing one massive collective challenge.
And the community itself is this really fascinating mix. You've got your traditional roboticists who are just fed up with the old, clunky software. You've got AI developers who see this as the next big frontier. And then you have all these newcomers, hobbyists, investors, even kids who just want to, as Wolfe perfectly puts it, vibe code a robot's behavior. How cool is that?
And we're not talking about some tiny niche group here. We're already talking 6,000 to 10,000 people, and that number is growing like crazy. That's a huge signal that there's this massive, untapped hunger for open robotics.
So, you've got all this momentum, all these excited people. What's the one thing that's holding everybody back? What is the one problem that this entire movement is now banding together to try and solve?
The answer, in one word, is data. See, unlike a language model that can just slurp up the entire internet to train, robots need physical data. And the real killer challenge is what's called generalization. You could train a robot to work perfectly in your bedroom with red walls, but the second you move it into the living room with green walls, it completely fails.
And this is where the community becomes the solution. It's brilliant, really. The plan is for thousands of people, all with these low-cost robots, to record and share data from their own unique environments. Different lighting, different objects, different room layouts. By pooling all of that data together, they can build that massive, diverse, multicolored data set that finally lets robots learn to work anywhere.
Okay, so let's zoom out.
Let's say this community actually pulls it off. They solve the data problem. What does that world actually look like? What's the grand vision for the future of robotics here?
Well, Thomas Wolfe sees two possible paths forward. There's the humanoid future, which is a world with just a few types of super expensive elite robots that cost as much as a car. But the future he's pushing for is what he calls the galaxy future, a world just filled with a whole galaxy of different, affordable, creative robots for everything from entertainment to education.
And this quote really gets to the very soul of this whole project. It's a democratic vision. The goal is not to create luxury gadgets for the wealthy, it's about empowering everyone and making sure this technology actually benefits all of society, not just a select few.
So, when you boil it all down, the big takeaway is this. Just think about how platforms like YouTube and social media turned us all from people who just passively consume media into people who actively create it. Well, this movement wants to do the exact same thing for AI. It's about giving everyone the tools to not just use AI, but to build with it.
Which kind of leaves us with this one last, really fascinating question. As these tools get cheaper and simpler and way more powerful, we might all get the chance to teach a machine how to interact with the physical world. So are we standing on the edge of a future where pretty much everyone is a roboticist? That's what this whole movement is betting on.